Welcome into another edition of Steelers Afternoon Drive. You know what it is. I'm Zachary Smith, but it is not Alan Saunders with me today. It is a Farabaugh Friday on Steelers Afternoon Drive. My guy, Nick Farabaugh, joining me. I appreciate you joining me. I also appreciate the fact that you're going with the Isaac Seumalo style hair right now.
Yes, I am. I am going with the Isaac Seumalo style hair. My hair cannot compete with that man's hair. He has been blessed in the department of like everything. It makes me jealous, but it is a tribute to my brother. Don't forget that he is my brother. So it's a simple tribute. It's a simple tribute.
I appreciate that. And hopefully this just means that they're going to be able to keep running the football, transitioning from last week into this week, and just keep it rolling against the Jaguars. The fact you're doing this. Let's talk about the injury situation first and foremost. I think a lot of people had a little bit of a scare yesterday seeing Diontae Johnson, DNP, especially because it was a hamstring, right? You know, he was just on the IR for a hamstring injury. When you see that that's the reason, I think everybody's mind immediately goes to, did he just tweak that same injury, especially when we got the Freiermuth situation playing out the way that it did. However, Diontae Johnson back at practice today. He said he's going to play Sunday, was a full participant. So put people's minds to ease there a little bit. Kind of the same deal with Larry Ogunjobi. With the shoulder was a DNP yesterday. Again, even going back to yesterday's show, Alan said he feels like Larry Ogunjobi could just not practice for like an entire week and then show up on Sunday and play. That just seems to be the way that he's gone about things. This was his shoulder, not a foot this time, so maybe a little bit different situation, but he's going to be good to go. Nick, really what we want to look at here, though, is the secondary, the corner specifically. 3 of their corners questionable to go in this one against the Jaguars here on Sunday.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. These corners, man, really banged up. From Joey Porter Jr. to Levi, now to James Pierre, like three injuries, both happening yesterday's practice. Joey and James Pierre both went down. I mean, it wasn't like a padded practice or anything. They just happened to get injured. Joey took a wrong step, came up. Pierre got hurt on like the last play of practice. Like it was fluky. So I guess we'll see. Joey said he's going to play, but sometimes that doesn't always come true. And calf injuries are tough.
Right.
I think Joey will play, though. I will say this, from what I can say is I think Joey did the most in practice out of those 3 today.
Okay.
Obviously, Pierre did nothing because he did not practice at all. But Joey did the most. Levi didn't really do much at all. I don't really expect to see Levi Wallace play. I think he will be out, and so I will think Darius Rush has a chance here to play. I think Joey and Pat Pete will start. I think you'll see Joey play. Shan Sullivan will play a lot, but I think I don't know. Maybe Barcoo plays over Rush. I don't know. They were working both Luke Barcoo and Darius Rush today out there. Bigger, long corners. Barcoo's physical. Rush is obviously just so brand new to this team. Like, has not played much, has no experience. So I'm a little worried of throwing Darius Rush out there just so early, but they might have to if Pierre can't play. So I guess we'll see kind of where this stands. I think, this DB room was already a question mark into this game, right? When I don't really know how they were going to line up against Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, and Calvin Ridley. I think that was already an issue. But now I'm not sure. I don't know if Joey Porter Jr. is going to be healthy enough to hold up the whole game with the calf. Can Darius Rush play at a high level? Can Barcoo step up? Can Pat Pete step up? Like, is he going to be strictly outside, or can they move him around? I think they're going to have a lot of questions that they're going to need to answer for this one, and so we'll see. I am very worried about the secondary in this one. And I really am not super optimistic about Pittsburgh's chances of slowing down this Jaguars offense. I'm just going to be real with you. I think it's a really bad matchup for them.
We'll talk more specifically about that when we get into predictions and stuff at the latter portion of the show. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's like, remember last year against Tampa, the secondary that they had for that game. I'm not saying this is exactly like that, but just like a really banged up unit where you might see guys that like our Darius Rush's case so new to the system. Like, could you imagine him actually getting reps in a game? Obviously, the Steelers don't want that to happen, but there's a good chance that it happens on Sunday with the injuries they've suffered on the back end. To your point about Joey Porter Jr., just because he starts this game, who's to say with that soft tissue injury that he's dealing with, whatever's going on with his calf, is going to hold up for 4 quarters? Who knows? Are they going to have to limit his reps? Yeah, it's going to be a bad weather football game too. The weather could play an element into all of this as well. So, yeah, I'm really curious as to what the plan of attack is going to be for the secondary. But I guess we'll get answer to those questions on Sunday. I've kind of been looking at it like Pierre, because so late in the week, DNP on Friday. I don't think he's going to go. Levi Wallace, I'm leaning towards no. Joey Porter Jr., I'm leaning towards yes, and just hope he can hold up.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think that I do think Pierre just has a sprain, which means he could play, I think. So I think it's possible. It's not a serious injury, but the fact that he suffered it on Thursday, I think,
Right.
doesn't help his shots, especially because they were getting Rush and Barcoo going, just kind of ready to go. And Barcoo told me it looked really likely he's going to come up. So if that happens, if Barcoo gets elevated, I probably agree with you. I think Pierre's probably out. I do think Joey will play. We'll see how much he holds up. To both these guys, man. Kirk and Ridley have some speed, pretty good in the open field. Can break tackles really well. Like, it's a tough matchup for this group, regardless of who's out there. I think really the eligibles. Evan Ingram is a guy that gets a lot of volume over the middle of the field off those quick passes. It's tough because the secondary is going to have to make tackles. They get Travis Etienne in space. Like, it's going to be tough for them. But the health of the DB room is really hurting them, I think. And even if they play Rush and Barcoo, like, I don't know how much of an upgrade that is at all. In fact, it's probably a downgrade. Like, I get Levi's played bad, but like, I have much more confidence right now in Levi Wallace than Luke Barcoo and Darius Rush. I just do.
Yeah.
It's intriguing to see Barcoo and Rush, right? Like, okay, different faces, like, cool, let's see. But like, in terms of a comfort factor, like, at least I know Levi Wallace knows the defense. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's the one thing. And so we'll see. It could be a disaster. It could maybe it's a Tampa Bay game from last year. I don't know. Maybe this secondary like balls out and steps up in a big way, and the Steelers at that point, I think Hurt certainly would have to take a hard look at what they're doing in terms of their division of labor if that happens. But I think that we are going to see new faces out there, and we'll see kind of how it matriculates. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting because, again,
Well,
really tough matchup.
right. And with that much, maybe turnover going on the back end, they're really going to be relying on this pass rush. And that's what I want to talk about. Actually, we got to go back a couple episodes here to give a shout out to one of our viewers, Joe Aber, because he brought this up as something he noticed against the Rams, is that Highsmith and Watt were switching sides a little bit. There was just a couple reps where they were rushing from their opposite sides. But Nick, is this something that we could see more of going forward? They've started to talk about that this week, moving TJ around a little bit more. Maybe even both those guys rushing over your interior offensive linemen as well, just putting them in different positions to win and making it not so predictable where those guys are coming from.
I do think they're going to do that more. I will say this. I'm not sure this pass rush is going to be a huge factor in this game. It's kind of weird to say that, but Trevor Lawrence is very similar to Stafford and Stroud in that it's a rhythm, quick passing game. So they try to limit the ability. Like, Trevor has not been hit a lot this year. The pressure rate they are allowing is not that high. It's not really because their O-line is that great. I think their O-line's like fine. I don't think it's elite, but Anton Harrison and Cam Robinson are certainly exploitable matchups for Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. But I think this is the week we kind of got to start seeing this moving around, because teams are putting a wide receiver at a condensed split and a tight end or a running back chipping. And then if you're a tackle, you just have you're set up shop, right? Like, you're ready to take TJ's speed rush on. And I think the interesting thing about TJ is he's so reliant on his rip move, right? He's so reliant on his speed rush that because of that, doing that really takes him out. Like, he basically did nothing against the Rams in terms of pressure stats. Like, he was not around Stafford that much. The pressure stats really went either on the interior or to Alex Highsmith. And And so Highsmith's been creating a lot of pressure because they're just selling out for Watt. It's just so easy to game plan to one side, right? Okay, we can put
Mhm.
this formation here, we can slide this way, and that's all that. So they got to move TJ around. They're the only team that doesn't move their star pass rusher around, right? Like looking around the league at elite pass rushers, Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, Daniil Hunter, like all these guys move around. They move right to left. They go over the interior. Like TJ Watt should be rushing from the A gap 2 or 3 times a game. Should be on the right side, 8 or 10 times a game. Like it doesn't need to be a lot, but it needs to be enough to where they can be kept honest. And same thing with Highsmith. Like I want to see Alex Highsmith playing on different sides too. I know it's not TJ's comfortability. Like I know he's not like I know he's more comfortable against those right tackles. Like I understand that. And he's more comfortable on that side of the line, but he needs to get over to the other side a little bit. They have to make this harder for teams to game plan. They have to. Because like it's becoming too predictable at this point. Like it's easier to neutralize their pass rush, which is obviously the Steelers' strength. Like I don't think people realize how good the front for the Steelers can be. Yeah, Cam Hayward can come back too, obviously, but like just look at what else they have. Nick Herbig is ascending, and Marcus Golden's had a good year. Even on the
Mhm.
interior, right? Keanu Benton is playing really well. Mon Adams has had a nice season. Leal's played quite well. Like all these guys are playing at a pretty high level, and Ogunjobi has spurts. Like I think there are things that they can do to maximize their D line a little bit more. I think this is the clear one thing that they need to do though to get this pressure going, even against these quick passing teams. I just want to see TJ around the formation more, just because I think it opens him up to bat more balls down too. Trevor Lawrence leads the NFL right now in batted balls down. Like that's something that
Mhm.
he does because he gets the ball out so
Ooh.
quickly. Like TJ's going to be able to, get his hands up. I don't know. Maybe we see like a Burrow interception this week from
That's
TJ. Like
you're kind of putting that
where
in
he
my
like
mind there,
reaches
yeah.
up and grabs it, right? Like I think it's possible. Like that's something that they do. And so like I want them to move him around more because if the guy that is the worst on the line is the left guard, like I want to see TJ Watt against him. Like even elite interior guys move around now. Like Aaron Donald almost smoked Dan
Mhm.
Moore on that final play, really, where Kenny hit the route to Allen Robinson. Like that's something that immediately, or it's not sorry, the seam ball to George Pickens. That's where he was against
Okay.
him. Like you got to move these guys around a little bit. It doesn't have to be for like a ton, but it needs to be at least there. And maybe
Yeah.
they go 3 outside linebackers every now and then. We haven't seen the 3 outside backer package in a while. Like you put Herbig or Golden out there. So I just would like to see them move them around a little bit more, create more exotic pressure packages. I think that's where they're missing Brian Flores.
Mm.
Last year, they didn't move TJ around a lot, but they were able to scheme up pretty cool blitz packages to get TJ one-on-ones or Cam one-on-ones or Highsmith one-on-ones. Keith Butler was a master of that. For all the flack Keith Butler got, like he was able to get TJ and all these guys one-on-ones because his blitz packages were awesome and he was able to move the guys around. Like I need to see Terrell Austin dig into that bag a little bit. They have to do it. And from every indication I've heard, I think they will.
Yeah, I wanted. Why now? Like obviously it's something that they need to do, but was this part of the self scouting that was done during the bye week? They realized this is something they should be doing, or like, what is it that this is the time of year that all of a sudden like this decision's being made? Do you think?
Yeah, I think it's TJ's game against the Rams that had them a little bit shook because the Rams loaded over the right side of their formations on that left side of the line and just completely took TJ out of the game. Like, I mean, they neutralized him from a pass rush standpoint. So most of the pass rush, luckily for the Steelers, they were able to pick it up because Highsmith was having a good game. Benton had a nice game. Leal played well. Larry played well. Like all of their guys down the line played well. Were able to pick it up and use TJ's attention for good. But you also want 90 making plays. Like he is your best player. Like I think that's what it was. I think they saw okay, McVay reduced the split, then chipped him again, then he finally reached the tackle, and by that point, he was kind of dead to rights. Now TJ has to evolve a little bit too, right? Like, okay, start bringing out your bull rush more, start bringing out that that inside counter. Like we know he has those. he just has become, I think, this season like overly reliant upon that speed rush because no one's been able to stop him. And trust me, I don't think anyone would have stopped him one-on-one last week either. I think he would have smoked Lark Jackson like that. But TJ's got to understand now, like, you're not going to be one-on-one. You're 2-on-1. You're 3-on-1. It's not a traditional double team. And I know people are like, oh, his double team rates aren't high. Like, just watch the tape. He's getting double teamed just virtue of splits, chips, different things. Like, they give him elite edge rusher treatment. And so how do you free up that elite edge rusher? Every team gives Nick Bosa elite edge rusher treatment. Every team gets Myles Garrett elite edge rusher treatment. Like, it happens, but okay, we're going to line up Myles Garrett over your center, and he's going to come right at your quarterback. And that's become a very deadly package for the Browns this year. Like, TJ can do that. TJ can go to the other side. Like, mess with the protection calls. Make sure that if they want to flip their formations, do that, but that throws off their plays. That throws off their process. And it makes it harder for them, as an offense to function because you got to slide protection, you got to do this, and it leads them more prone to mistakes in terms of blocking. It can free up, a linebacker, it can free up whoever's blitzing. And so there's a lot of different ways the Steelers can utilize this to their advantage. And it's been weird that they have never done it. I just think that's
Yeah.
the bigger thing is every other team does it. Like, it is a common thing. Like, the Steelers are behind the 8 ball again in terms of trends in the NFL, right? It just seems like it
Yeah.
happens a lot. But now they're catching up, and I just think it's something that they have to do in order to get TJ Watt a little bit more free. Just because then if they have to respect him in the middle and on the other side, it'll open up stuff for him on his natural side too.
Sure. Yeah. And I like knowing the type of player TJ is, I almost feel like that's like extra motivation for him to be able to be productive in other areas too. Like, I'm surprised he hasn't kind of been, like you said, he doesn't necessarily like playing on that other side. He just feels more natural, but like what it could open up the possibilities. You almost feel like he's going to take that challenge head on. Speaking of motivation, a little bit of a back and forth here. Rayshon Jenkins, the safety for the Jaguars, was asked about, the Steelers pass catchers, brought up George Pickens and said respectfully, he hasn't seen corners like ours yet. George Pickens was asked about the Jaguars defense. He said they kind of hope that the guys hold up long enough. It's kind of a hope defense. Guys talk back and forth, right, in the NFL. And that typically goes on during the field of play, during a game and stuff like that. It's not uncommon to see guys chirping back and forth. We just saw, George take a taunting penalty a week ago. So, what are your thoughts on this little back and forth exchange? And yeah, how do you feel about it?
Well, I like the confidence from both sides, as they should be confident. Both of them are
Mm-hmm.
playing high levels. The Jags secondary, people point to the question specifically asked for when George responded was saying that the Jags had the second or 31st in pass yards allowed. Like, they allow a
Yeah,
ton of pass yards. That is false gold, folks. We still using volume stats in 2023. Like,
right. Like Minshew threw like 55 times against them, like
they
playing.
they have
Yeah,
they have faced 150 passes in the past 3 weeks. The next closest is 127. Like, it's not close. And that's because teams are playing from behind against them. It's nothing else. Teams are playing from behind, and they have a great run defense. Like, so you kind of have to throw, but the secondary is held up really well. Like, if you look at this, EPA per play, they're seventh, success rate sixth, drop back EPA sixth. Like, it is a solid group that's played
mm-hmm.
well. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think there aren't ways to exploit them. First of all, I do think George Pickens has advantages in this game, right? So I understand why he's getting a little cocky. He probably knows Tyson Campbell like the back of his hand. Darius Williams is 5'9". Like, I love Darius Williams, probably one of the most underrated corners in football. But like, dude, I'm being real. Like, GP is 6'3", plays bigger than 6'3". Those back shoulders against a 5'9" guy are really dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a fun matchup, I think, between Pickens and Diontae, because I think when you have Pickens and Diontae on their best, I don't care who's across from them, they can smoke anyone. Like, they're that good. But I think, one, I think it's just confidence and two units that are playing at a high level, and Pickens himself is playing on an absolute. I mean, Pickens looks like a top 15 receiver right now. He's playing unbelievable football. He really is. He's taken that leap to another level. So I understand where it's coming from. Trash talk on both sides is what it is. It's going to be, it's football. And especially for George, he's an emotional football player. Like, we've learned this
Yeah.
at this point. Like, listen, the Steelers will never have a normal wide receiver, anyways, right? Like, never. The last normal wide receiver might have been, I don't know, Hines Ward, like maybe. I don't know. Like, go back through their whole history, like even back to like Louis Lips. Like, dude, never a normal receiver on this football team. And so George and Diontae, if they can keep their head on straight, I feel like could have a great game. Because I just, the thing about the Steelers receivers that are funny is this is either going to blow up in their faces spectacularly because they're going to fall flat on their face, or they're just going to torch the absolute paste out of this Jaguars DB group. I don't know which one it's going to be because I never know which Diontae Johnson's going to show up. First of all, and I never know if things start to go wrong early with George Pickens, what's going to happen from there? Like, it's crazy, but they have a great, talented group. I just need to see it more. So, I mean, I like this trash talk. I think it ups the ante a little bit. It's a big game. You should feel confident. Both teams are coming in on win streaks, right? The Steelers are 2-0 against their division rivals. Like, feel confident. The Jags are winners of four straight. Like, you better be confident if you won four straight.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you beating the Bills, you beating the Falcons, you beating the Saints, like beating some good teams in there. They went toe to toe with the Chiefs pretty well. Like, they held Mahomes just 17 points. Like, they played well. I will say I think Pickens' statement is just objectively wrong. Like, they are not
Yeah.
a hope defense, right? Like, I kind of okay, I kind of get where he's coming from with it because I feel like he's just trying to more so say like, oh, they blitz a lot, which they do. They blitz a ton. And what he just means is they play a lot of zone coverage behind it. And so you can exploit that. And it's true. If you can get the ball out quick, you can exploit the zone coverage because the blitz is coming and it puts their corners in tough spots. Like, I understand what he's trying to say there, but saying they're a hope defense and that their DBs kind of stink, it's not really true. Like, let's just go by like position to position. Like, Tyson Campbell's a really good young corner. Darius Williams, I talked about him already, really underrated outside corner, even though he's only 5'9". Trey Herndon is kind of the slower slot guy, but really good zone guy. Cisco's like this ball hawk guy. And then Rayshon Jenkins is like this leader who is kind of inconsistent, like can completely just lose his mind twice a game and just let up a huge
Mm-hmm.
play, but also can make the big play. So it's a solid group. That I really like. I mean, like, the trash talk is like whatever. I understand it, but it's going to be a good match between these two units. I'm really excited to see it actually between Pickens, Johnson, and these DBs. Like, I think it should be one of the more intriguing matchups across the NFL.
Yeah, and even Buster Brown, who was kind of the guy that the Saints were attacking to try to get back into that Thursday night football game, like I thought he held up fine too. So, I want to talk about the Jags defense as a whole, though. Do you feel like they are this good? Do you feel like they're kind of overachieving to this point? Like, what is it? Is it the steam? Is it do you believe in the personnel that they have there to continue to play it the way that they have? Because when I look at them, obviously Josh Allen, really good pass rusher. They got a really good off-ball linebacker duo in Devin Lloyd and Foye Oluokun. They got Tyson Campbell, who we mentioned, Andre Cisco, who we mentioned. Like, they have guys, at least one guy at every level, seemingly. So, do you believe in this group overall, or do you think what they've done up to this point is kind of a mirage?
No, I think it's pretty real. Like, listen, they don't have like a superstar, right? They don't have a TJ Watt, they don't have a Minka, like they don't have a Cam Hayward. But like, let's just go by level by level. Like, Josh Allen's a really nice young pass rusher. He's probably the face of this defense. Like, he's probably the best player.
Yeah.
He's probably a star. I don't think he's a superstar like TJ or Minka, but solid player that is, I think, already has like 7 sacks this year or something. Like, he's having a really nice year. He had a great year last year. He just didn't have the sack production, but the pressure rate was all there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, it makes sense for him to have a great year. I like some of these guys on the interior for them, like Foley Fatusaki is a really good
Yeah.
run defender. Roy Robertson Harris is a solid player that I really like.
Sounds like Davon Hamilton's coming back for this game as well.
Oh man, dude, Davon Hamilton's a bad dude, man. Like, good
Yeah.
football player. like they are kind of a really deep team across the front. And like Trayvon Walker, he's kind of is what he is. Like he's not like first overall good, but he's a really good run defender, can cause a little havoc. I know he tested like a freak, but like you don't really see this freak athleticism on tape. Like
Mhm.
he's a somewhat limited player, but I'm not gonna lie, like Josh Allen against Dan Moore is a very scary matchup if I were the
Yeah.
Steelers. And again, they like blitz a lot, so you're gonna get a lot of disguises. You're gonna get Oluokun coming. Devin Lloyd's probably playing his best ball in the NFL so far. He was everywhere against the Saints. When I watched that Thursday night game, like he was just absolutely everywhere. So I like Devin Lloyd and where he's at. I think they have a nice duo linebacker. And then we talked about the secondary. Like it's just solid. Like I don't think it's like an elite defense or anything. Like it's not. They don't have like stars, but like, dude, find the hole for me. Like, where's the like obvious hole on this defense? Like it's not like they don't have that superstar presence, and I just don't see a huge hole. Now I will say this for a team that blitzes as much as they do, I think they're 8th in blitz rate right now. And they are like 17th in pressure. Like that is not a good
Yeah.
number. And really the pressures are coming from Josh Allen. And so like they need to get
Yeah,
that
they've
pressure rate
been
up.
so linked to, Daniil Hunter or getting another pass rusher, I believe,
Yeah.
for that reason. I mean, they just need another guy.
They just need another dude like that. Like they scheme it up well. They need another guy to make some plays out there. And I like Trayvon Walker in terms of what he can do and taking bodies up and crashing. He's a great run defender. I wish they would use Trayvon Walker over the interior a little more. I think that would be like something he can do pretty
Mhm.
well. I understand he hasn't lived on the first overall hype, but he can do a lot of things. Mike Tomlin said as such. They are worried about him, and I think rightfully so. But like that is like the one thing where I think the Steelers maybe if this O line can hold up a little bit, I think could maybe find things behind that zone coverage, like because there are going to be they're going to be openings. Like Kenny's going to have to realize the blitzes. He's going to have to find the open man, but there are going to be spots open in this spot drop zone they play behind him because they it's kind of what they do. Very similar. Caldwell, I think who is their DC? I can't remember. Is it Caldwell?
Ooh, actually, I don't know.
I am not sure
I
who
can,
their defensive coordinator is. I like really looked it up. Yeah, Mike Caldwell is their defensive coordinator. I thought so. But he's an offshoot, I believe, of Todd Bowles. So kind of makes sense in that regard. That they would blitz a lot and give you a lot of different looks. And Kenny Pickett has not been great at kind of picking up those looks, and we saw that a little bit last week against the Rams, and how this group has kind of struggled a little bit to pick up those blitzes. So it worries me a little bit. But then I look back to that Ravens game where really from the second quarter on, they did pick up those blitzes well, and they started to read defenses better. And Kenny in the fourth quarter saw blitzes from Raheem Morris and really dissected them. Like the George Pickens throw, I mean, he's getting absolutely bared down in his face. It's a really tough read. I think they show a sim pressure where they show 7 back off. It's just 4. And you have Aaron Donald coming off the edge smoking him, and he just finds George Pickens wide open. Like, I need that Kenny Pickett for a large portion of this game. But there will be opportunities. And again, the Steelers have enough talent, I think, to even where I like this defense. I think there's going to be opportunities. I don't know if they're going to be able to run the football very well. This is a really good run defense. But like, I don't know if they're going to be able to run the ball as well as they did against the Rams. But I really do think they're going to have options in the passing game. I really do. And like this is going to be the game to me to where like, dude, get the tight ends involved. Like, give me
yeah.
2 Darnell Washington targets or get Connor Hayward something. I also mentioned this on X, I guess is what it is now. But the Jaguars have allowed the most receptions to running backs this season in the NFL.
How many?
Like
How many did Alvin Kamara have? Like
had
12
like
on like
12, dude. Like
15. Yeah.
they allowed like 6 receptions to Zach Moss. Like, dude, like
Yeah.
Zach Moss is like not not a pass catching running back, and like he got his like. This is a team that allows that to happen. I feel like a lot of things should come about because of that. They've done a lot of cool things with their running backs with motion recently. The Steelers have, and
Mhm.
like you're like, oh, they should be able to do some things in that regard, right? Okay, maybe they can get those screen passes out or get those swings out. Like they have done a lot of cool motion stuff with those guys. And so Jalen Warren and Najee are probably going to have to carry a lot of the load in terms of the passing game as an extension of the running game. I think Calvin Austin's probably going to see a little work there too. There will be chances here if they can execute, but one, you got to trust Matt Canada to come up with that game plan, and two, you got to trust them to execute it. And listen, I just don't trust the offense yet to do it, but there's going to be opportunities. So don't be surprised to me if you see the offense actually get some decent success here.
The last thing I want to talk about, going back to Jaguars on offense versus Steelers defense. Steelers defense allowing over 140 rushing yards per game. Travis Etienne, 6 rushing touchdowns in the last 3 weeks, 7 on the season. You would think, we've talked about what the weather could be like. We've talked about, the cornerback situation. So you would think like, oh, this kind of plays to the Steelers' hand with their corner situation. We would want the Jaguars to run the football. They're having a ton of success doing it, though, and the Steelers haven't had a ton of success stopping it.
Dude, I think ETN is like public enemy number one. Like, dude, I understand Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram, and Christian Kirk are going to be tough to stop, but like this run defense has been really concerning. They haven't tackled well, and the corners haven't been able to tackle well. And you're asking them to tackle Travis Etienne. Like Etienne is probably the most underrated back in football right now in terms of just how he creates yards. He's so explosive. His stop and start ability just to create misses. Like I think against the Bills, he forced like 14 missed tackles or something absurd in that game. It was just absurd to watch. Like, he is so hard to bring down in the open field. He's a good receiver, like good enough as a pass catcher. Like he is such an issue. And then when they get in the red zone, they put Trevor Lawrence's legs in there too. Like it's really hard. They're gonna have to minimize Travis Etienne. Like I don't think they can win this game without minimizing him to a degree. Now, I will say this, like the Jaguars kind of lose their heads a little bit with some of this play calling they do. I like Press Taylor and what he's done, but sometimes you'll just see Travis Etienne rip off like 2 runs for 30 yards, and then they'll just go like 5 straight passes and that kick a field goal. Like I don't know. I like where Trevor Lawrence is right now, but like that seems excessive to me. Like they should be riding Etienne more in this game, especially. And I don't think that the Steelers' defensive line and linebackers are going to be very outmatched against this O line. Like it's a solid O line, right? Like Cam Robinson, Brandon Scherf, you got Walker Little probably returning, and then you have Anton Harrison as well on that line. Like it's a solid line, but like the Steelers' D line, I feel like can match that. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Fortner is starting at center right now. So like, it's a solid group, but it's not like an elite group. But ETN is a special back, so that's going to be a tough stop. They're going to have to wrap up really well, play really gap disciplined, because this Steelers defense is not super athletic. And if he hits the open field, I think he's gone. Like it's going to be really tough to stop him. And we have seen them prone to giving up big runs with CMC, Jerome Ford. Guys in the past that have really gashed him. So it's going to be like a really good litmus test to see where this run defense is. If they can slow down ETN, I really think they have a chance. I know that, I talked about the secondary and how tough it might be for them to match up against those guys, but like really, I mean, it is a group that has to stop the run first, because I think you could force Trevor Lawrence into a mistake or two, or at least get the pass rush there, right? Just let Highsmith and Watt just kind of pin their ears back and get after him. Like that's where you got to get them into. So they really, really got to stop ETN and not let him go off. Unless the Jaguars just take him out of the game for them, which again, as I talked about, they've done before, where I just don't understand why they do that. I also just think in terms of Jags offense, like look at their first half numbers. Like, dude, in the first quarter, they come out smoking. Like, their scripted plays right now, they are one of the most productive teams on their scripted plays this year. We have seen what happens when the Steelers get down early and how bad that can be for them. When they lost to San Francisco and Houston, they got crushed early in the game and were never really able to claw back. They were able to do it against Baltimore better. So, I mean, they got to – either the offense needs to show up or this defense needs to at least lull Jacksonville, because Jacksonville's kind of like Baltimore, where – they might come out for the first 30 minutes just swinging and going crazy. But man, dude, the back half of games has been tough for them sometimes where they do not play a full 60. And so we'll see where this offense kind of is. Like if there is a week for the Steelers to break the first half offensive curse, man, like this is the week they need to do it. Like,
Yeah.
because I think this defense, I really do believe the Steelers defense is going to have like a pretty hard time slowing down the Jags offense.
Yeah. Just before I asked you for a prediction here, I'm looking at the injury report for the Jaguars side of things here. We know Trevor Lawrence has been dealing with that knee issue. He's listed as questionable, but he's going to play. Zay Jones, who you had already put out, has been rolled out. Same thing with cornerback Gregory Jr. So actually a little bit of issues on the back end for them too. Tyson Campbell and Andre Cisco both listed as questionable with hamstring injuries. I actually don't know what their practice participation has been like throughout the week. I know Tyson Campbell has been missing from Jaguars. He hasn't played in a couple weeks for them. Walker Little and Brandon Sheriff also listed as questionable with knee and ankle injuries, respectively. So they're not coming into this thing like super healthy either, but I don't know what the game status is going to be for those guys.
I expect most of them to play at least. I don't know how many of them will play, but I kind of feel like most of them will play. That's just my feeling on that. But like they're banged up, but I think everything's a little banged up at this time of year. We'll see.
Yeah,
Like
and
hamstring
they
injuries.
got their bye week after this.
Yeah,
So
I don't know. Maybe they could. I mean, maybe they would hold out. A Campbell or someone like that with that hamstring. Like I don't know if they injure their hamstring right before the bye week. Kind of seems stupid, but like this is a big game for AFC like position, dude. Like it's a really big game for both these teams because I mean Steelers are in the AFC North race. If you feel like that, right? If they win this game, like they have the tiebreaker over the Jags. Like this is a huge game for both these teams. It feels like for the Jags, this should be like a statement, like okay, we're above this tier of teams. For the Steelers, though, if they win this game, like I don't know. I mean, I guess I guess we could like I feel like I said this for Baltimore too, where I was like, oh, if they win this game, like they're not as bad as everyone thought they were, and then they won it in the way they did, and I was like, I have no idea what to think about this
yeah.
football team.
Well, especially when you got, Tennessee and Green Bay on the other side of that. Now, no
Yeah,
game is like a gimme one, but with both those games also being at home, you feel like the Steelers would be setting themselves up pretty well here to go on a
yeah. I
nice
mean,
little
you
run.
you, you really feel like if you win this game, you can cruise yourself to 7-2. Like you can. That's no guarantee, but like you feel like you can get there. And then you have like, Cleveland and Cincy after that, which like both on the road, that's a tough stretch. But I mean, you would be in a really good spot at 7-2, 2-0 in the North. And if you win both, that's two more AFC wins popped on. Like that is a nice set
Yeah.
foundation for the Steelers. And like, I don't know. I feel like if they beat the Jags, I'm just gonna say, like, let's just say the Jags don't completely lose their minds and just deconstruct and lose in like a absurd way where the Steelers just pull it out again. Like I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that would be a sign where we can take that second half against the Rams and say, okay, they might actually like be building something here. Like I don't know, maybe if we're just experiencing deja vu from last year where
Post
we
bye.
Steelers were 2-6 and coming out of the bye week, and all of a sudden we're like, dude, who the heck is this team? Like, where did this team come from? Third in EPA and rush, like third in rushing EPA, and like all these absurd stats from last year in the second half. Like, it's possible that this is a statement game for the Steelers. Like let's see where they show up. Like, even if they lose this game, say in pretty like competitive fashion, like I think that is a
Mm-hmm.
good barometer to where they should be. So this is a big game, I think, to find out how real the Steelers are. If they have if they went 4-2 through their bad stretch and are starting to like actually hit a little bit of their stride, like that's obviously the best outcome. But I'm hoping for a non-chaotic outcome because I really want to figure out what in the world this team is. I've
Well,
covered this team all year and I still like don't know what they are, man.
right. Yeah. Well, okay. So how do you see Sunday playing out then? It's the last thing
I
I'll
do
ask
see
you.
the Jags winning this game.
Yep.
I just don't. I just think they're really undermanned secondary. Like, I think the Jags line up really badly with their eligibles being able to be slippery in the yak, Etienne being speedy. Like look at the teams that the Steelers have struggled against defensively. It's been really hyper athletic teams that get the
Mm-hmm.
ball out quickly. The Niners and the Texans are both that. and really the Jags are very similar. So I'm not sure they're going to be able to stop them. I do think the offense though is like going to get things going. Like I think I told you I think there's really spots to exploit here, not necessarily by personnel. I think that the Steelers have the eligibles to work a pretty usable scheme against this group. Like I do think if Matt Canada can drop a decent game plan, I'm probably setting myself up for disappointment just by saying that, by the way. Just trusting Matt Canada to do this. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna throw out like 31, like 24 or something. Like I feel like that's
Okay.
a realistic game. Like I do think the defense is gonna catch up to them at some point. Like they are due for a bad game where they kind of get smoked. But I do think the offense with Diontae back, it's different. And I think they have like a solid enough game plan print, so like where I can map it out and be like, yeah, they can score a decent amount of points here. I'm probably stupid for predicting their offense to score that much. I mean, I'm predicting 3 touchdowns and a field goal. Like that would be by far their most productive game of the year. But I do feel like this is a team that has opportunities to be exploited, just through scheme. And listen, like if Kenny is able to magnify those blitzes, get behind the zones, like you get Pickens and DJ and in space, you get Warren in space. Like Steelers have been a pretty good yak team this year. Like we could see some chunk plays just off the yak stuff. And I think that's what they're going to need this week because Jags are pretty good at keeping a lid on it.
Yeah, I got 27-21 Jaguars in this one. But again, to your point, like, I don't think it's the end of the world to lose this football game if you see something from the offense. Like, if they were able to carry over what they did against the Rams and have a decent showing in this one, I don't think the result is the end of the world. Now, whether it's treated as such by the fan base, I can't speak to. But just on the surface, I don't think losing a football game to what I consider, a top 5 to 7 team in the NFL and the Jacksonville Jaguars means that the season is over. So that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I agree with that. You need positive signs of development from this group. And I think that we started to see a little bit of that against the Rams. Now we need to continue to see that. I still think that they have a lot of easy adjustments they can make with this group. Like I really do. I feel like they've started to do that in the run game, but we're talking like things like Broderick Jones starting, like that would make more sense. Keanu Benton playing more, like just things like that. I feel like can still elevate this team. Obviously, Cam Hayward returning is going to be huge when he returns. So like the team should get better. And I don't know why everyone's been acting like the Steelers are like this devoid of talent team. Like never felt that way. Like they were clearly more talented than the Rams were last week. Like they won in large part partially just because they completely bullied the Rams like down the stretch. They are more talented than people think. They just got to get their heads on straight, and this coaching has to be ironed out. And typically what happens with Tomlin teams is the first 10 weeks of the year are like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And then kind of everything locks into place. And then it's like, that's what you guys were doing. And then everybody, like, okay, Keanu Benton's going to be playing a lot down the stretch, and Joey's starting, and Broderick's probably going to be in there, and everyone's like, bro, why didn't you do this from the start?
Yeah, absolutely. Really good episode. Excited about seeing how this game goes. Let us know your guys' predictions in the comments as well. But Nick, tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Farabaugh That's my name plus FB. Make sure to read at SteelersNow.com. Make sure to subscribe here too, as always, folks. I'm assuming that Mr. Alan Saunders will be back on Monday, so should be him and talking about whatever the heck happens in this game.
Do you have a code for 10% off for SN Plus or no? Is that just Alan?
I do. You could go to Nick 10. Yes.
Okay, there we go. And apparently it's actually a little bit more than 10%, according to what people have told Alan. So it's like 12.5, 13% or something
Nick,
like that.
Nick, 10%.
There we go. I am Zachary Smith, PGH. Yeah, I'm gonna actually turn that into a sound, and then I'll start playing it on here as an audio.
Oh my goodness!
There we go. But anyway, Zachary Smith, PGH on all the platforms. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here. Leave us a comment, whether it's a prediction for the game or something to talk about next week when Alan returns. But until then, for Nick Farabaugh, I'm Zachary Smith. Thanks for tapping in and watching another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive.